Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Sanderlanche podcast. Today, we read the last 6 chapters of the novella Edgedancer, chapters 15 through 20, wherein Lift and Darkness / Nail / whatever else you want to call them have their final confrontation-ish. I mean, I guess neither one of them ends up dead, so they could have a confrontation again later, I suppose. And it all happens, I think, as Joe may have predicted, like amidst the storm. So very dramatic. I'm Data, and with me today is
Jamie
and Joe.
So hang on to something, everybody. The Sanderlanche is about to begin.
Watch out because I'm tearing through. The world is turning black and blue. Bursting with color I spin. I'm gliding on a wave of grace. I'm riding, don't you break my pace. Burst up a highway to heaven, now I'm breaking in.
Yeah, just the three of us. Dak's not here today, but he sent us a few thoughts that you'll get to hear in a little bit. So yeah, 6 chapters. We wrapped up this novella. Just a quick 3-episode digression before we get into the next big book. What did you guys think of these 6 chapters? And I asked the question and then immediately say, hold on. Dak did send us, as I mentioned, his thoughts on the chapters. And I think I'm going to put his after Jamie and Joe do theirs. So you will get to hear from Dak a little bit this episode. So go ahead. What did you guys think of these 6 chapters?
Yeah, confrontation-ish is probably about right. Did I expect that they would hug it out? No, not really. Yeah, it was definitely getting like that fast pace, running through the halls, and then they figured out who the other
Radiant
might be. My brain was just going Alamancer. I was like, no, that's not the right one.
That would be a surprise.
Yeah, and because I actually was thinking it might be the weird guy at one point, and then they were going in that direction, and as soon as they were going that way, I was like, no, it's too early in the book for it to be that guy. It's probably not that guy. But he had his own interesting things happening, which I did not see coming, and it was really creepy and a bit gross. Yeah, that was run away from him really, really fast. But yeah, then Joe was right on the money with what's her name?
The stump.
I was like, the statue? Okay, so I normally read the chapters like immediately before we record so I can be as fresh as possible. But last week I couldn't wait. So I read them that night. And so forgive me, my memory is terrible. But the stump. So that was good. I think that wrapped up really nicely. And, for the novella, I'm pretty happy with the story that we got. Lift is fine. I do like her character. I think that if we were going to see more of Lift, I think we should probably see just a little bit less of the traits that we don't love about Lift. But as a whole, I still like her character. But yeah, a good little novella. I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm hoping people came away with at least, we ended the thing with less of Lift being silly. Well, I say that, but we ended it with more of that, feeling kind Lift in a lot of ways to resolve the main problem of the novels or the novella. So I was hoping that that's what everyone kept being like, can we see more of that and less of this ridiculousness? So I'm hoping that you guys ended up at least a little bit more positive than where we were last week.
Yeah, I did enjoy the ending. There were a few Lift parts that I was like, oof. But I think overall, she exhibited some good growth. Near the end there, we get to see Wendell as a shard rod. So that was interesting. Kind of cool, fun, different.
Yeah.
And yeah, I have to agree with Jamie. I don't think I saw hugging it out being the thing that would kind of end the confrontation. And I kind of get it, but at the same time, it was almost like Brandon was trying to avoid Lift being in such a tough situation that she couldn't talk her way out of it. Because she's a kid, she doesn't really have the skills to use her powers well. Her body's not developed enough for her to kind of use her brain to to have her body do what she wants it to do, which I totally get that. Like, that makes sense based on how old she is, based on these powers that are, I'm sure, extremely difficult to wield. Totally get it. But at the same time, I kind of felt like, ooh, we kind of missed out a little bit on like a possibly cool fight scene, because it was like, oh yeah, we're just gonna kind of make it scary, but she's a kid, so everything works out, so that part was a little different. And I really liked the creepy Kremling creature guy. That was like a left turn I did not expect. I was like, wait, what's happening now? This guy is made of crabs? Like, what? So that was pretty cool, I have to say. I'm sure their powers are not close to being the same, but for some reason that character reminded me of the crystal guy from the
Lost Metal.
From the Lost Metal. I don't know why, but he just kind of reminded me of that character. Although the creep factor was much higher, because he's made of living things. Also interesting also interesting that they're scared of Wendell or don't like Spren or something. That was interesting. It intrigued me for sure. It's kind of a shame that the novella was, we're kind of wrapping it up, because I would have liked to see more interaction with that guy. But maybe whoever they are, because it sounds like there's more of them, and they're watching each of the Radiants we know, because they said them by name or by description anyway. And so maybe we'll get more of that in the coming books. But yeah, definitely a different thing than I was expecting, for sure. When they were like, oh, he's the guy, I fully bought it. I wasn't thinking like Jamie and thinking, no, it's too early for us to know that it's him. I was buying it. I was like, oh, I guess I was wrong. It's that guy. So then when we take a different turn with it, and it turns out he's like a completely different creature, you're just like, wait, what's happening now? So that was pretty cool. But overall, I really enjoyed the novella. I think Lift, for me, she's just not going to be a character that is one of my favorites. And I'm not saying the story was bad or anything like that. I really did enjoy it, but I don't see myself being a big Lift fan in the future if she's in the main books, unless she goes through a lot of development and changes quite a bit. She's just not my cup of tea, which is fine,
Yeah,
But no, I enjoyed the end of the little story here. Interesting. I am interested to see how this change, I read the postscript as well, so I am interested to see how this change in Nail affects his character in the later books, because this guy was on a mission. And so like now, having kind of been turned around, I want to know like what does that mean for him? What's going to be the play? Because in our heads we were setting him up to be a major antagonist and to bring Seth into that fold. But after reading this, it's like Seth is having doubts about things, and now this guy has been turned around as well. So like, what does that mean? And so it's kind of a cool setup for things further down the line for us. And I'm glad that you had us read this now, because it would be confusing to go into the next book, and if this guy had some major character development that had happened off page that we didn't really know about, it would be like, wait, what happened? This guy was like, this was the guy.
He's hunting down Radiance, and then the next time you see him, he's like not doing that anymore, and we have no idea why.
Yeah, I'm like, what's happening? So yeah, it was a good idea for sure to read this now, and it was good. I enjoyed it.
That's good. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting bits in here that like Crabman that I will be able to tell you a little more about when we get to that point in the story, because there's stuff that Brandon has told us that I can share with you guys about that. But Lift, like I told you guys when we first met Lift, she's very divisive. Some people love her, some people can't stand her. So it obviously, I think the fandom will be able to relate to you being like, yeah, not my cup of tea, right? Like, obviously, even within the fandom, a lot of people feel that same way. So me personally, I like Lift. I don't know that I want a whole bunch more stories that are just all Lift, because she is kind of a lot all at once, but I enjoy when she shows up. So, but I was going to send you guys, I wasn't able, or I was trying to avoid letting you guys see, but these are the pins that came out of like Lift and Wendell And I love it that Lift has her giant like shard fork with pancakes on it, and
Oh,
Wendell's
that's pretty cute.
He's fresh.
I didn't expect Wendell to look like quite like that. It's cute.
he's a chubby little plant guy, and he's holding a chair because he has a garden of chairs. So yes, some of the pins that have come out are spoilers at this point. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I gotta keep some of them from you. But we've now seen Lift with her shard fork, so that's no longer spoiling anything.
A garden of chairs, man. He's sounding more and more like a mad Tea Party character.
You see the Mad Hatter? Okay, I could maybe see that.
He's not mad. He'd probably be more like a bystander at the party who made all the chairs.
He's very put upon attendee of this party.
Yeah, he's like, oh, I guess if I have to go.
But yeah, I mean, it is interesting to have a novella where Nail's character does this kind of 180. At least it looks. I mean, we don't really know what he's going to take from this. We know that he's like realized he was wrong, but we don't know where that will lead. So then again, we barely even knew his name outside of the book, or I think it was here that we found. I think it was in the novella that we found out that he's doing this because Ishtar told him to like help stop the desolation from coming again. So if we hadn't read this, we wouldn't know any of the reasons why he was doing what he was doing. So maybe if he was doing something different, it wouldn't seem that out of place. I don't know. I honestly can't remember if when I first read these, I may not have read this in between these two. I may have read Edgedancer later on. Honestly, for the longest time, I was a Brandon fan, and I was avoiding the Stormlight Archive because it was just like the one that everyone's like, oh, this one is like this big epic. And I was just like, but I like Mistborn. Like, I don't need to mess with that. And then eventually it was like, I've read all of the books of his that I like 3 times now. I want something new. I guess I'll go read these.
Yeah. I mean, look, man, I'll say I'm a fan so far, for sure.
Yeah. Well, right here is where we will put in Dak's thoughts. I haven't actually listened to Dak's thoughts yet. He sent me a file, and I haven't. I didn't have time to listen yet. But here's what he thought.
Hello, friends. This is Dak. I will not be there this week, so I'm taking the time to record my thoughts on the end of Edgedancer. Short answer: I like this story a lot. I think it stuck the landing. Ultimately, I think the story plays out a lot like an extended version of Lift's interlude from the last book. She can be pretty grating, but every so often she reminds you why we like her. And when it comes down to it in the end, she ultimately is a good and caring person. I loved the ending with Nail, her confrontation with him, how she shows him he was wrong and gives him a hug. Like, really cool stuff. Like, she made this, almost Terminator-like dude just question himself and realize, maybe I am just like apologizing for the sake of apologizing. I don't actually care. And then she gets him to care. So that was cool. Really cool stuff. I am a bit confused that from the postscript we read afterwards, like, Nail's going to have a different goal in book 3 than what we've seen in book 2, which is strange. I don't quite get how you can have such a major development happening in a side story, like off page from the main story. Yeah, that baffles me a bit, but well, whatever. Brandon's books, that's what he decided to do. Here we are. The rest of the story, I really liked Lift talking with Seth. That was really cool. Like the moments before they had their conversation, where like he sees her and like draws the sword and then puts it away, is suitably terrifying. Like we know what Nightblood can do, so I'm like, I don't know what's gonna happen here. And then when they did talk, yeah, just like really interesting peek into Seth's head. And it seems like Seth and Nightblood are getting along, which is cool. I didn't expect Stump to be the Radiant, but that was a cool reveal. Like, having those moments of, oh, she was talking about the kids who, they're faking it. She's healing them. That's cool. That was a neat little tie back in, especially when she didn't even realize it. So, yeah, like, I enjoyed that. And it was cool to see at the end Lift is going back to Azir and to Gorks. She has developed a bit, so I'm curious to see where more of that goes. I honestly, I don't know if I can say I'm looking forward to future adventures of Lift. Like, I think she works best in small doses, and this was maybe a bit larger of a dose than I would have liked. But, in the end, I did enjoy this little story, and I did enjoy seeing that. Okay, that covers most of the developments, but just one last thing before I go. Arklow? What the fuck is that guy? What the fuck? So he's a pile of Kremlings taken human form. This is fucked on many levels. Like, this raises so many questions. Is he the only one? Like, are there more of them? around here? Like, if he is the only one, like, is it just Kremlings from, like, one hive that make him up or whatever? Or is it every Kremling in the world part of this guy? Or if there's more out there like him, like, different Kremlings make them up? Like, how does this work? Are all the Kremlings on Roshar parts of people? This seems pretty major. Why haven't we heard about this before? At least, we had sort of hints about the Kandra before we found out what they were. But, we know Chasm Fiends, we know Axe Hounds, and we know the Parshendi, but has there ever been mention of these tiny crabs making regular-sized people and I just missed it? And, they're crabs. Are they connected to the Parshendi? What is their connection to the Parshendi? Everything on this planet is crabs, so, like, how do these link up? They seem opposed. Did I miss it right? He said he was on humanity's side or whatever, so that means he's opposed to the Voidbringers. What? He knows who Nail is, so he has information on the Heralds. He knows something about what they're about. How old is this guy? What does he know? What the fuck? I have too many questions. There's too many crabs. Too much nausea from this. Holy Christ. Yeah, there we go.
Wow, Dak, that was really some deep, deep stuff.
Yeah. The more witty, smart, funny, everything I wanted.
Everything that we needed. I mean, we don't even need to film the rest of the episode. That was pretty much.
That was it.
Yeah.
Dak, you're a man among men.
It's so inspiring.
Yeah.
Do you feel luckier
Okay.
now, having heard that, to be his wife? Do you feel?
Oh, it's a whole new appreciation for the man. Yeah.
Nice. Glad that this show could do that for you.
Hey, honey.
Okay, let's get into these chapters, y'all. What did we do this time? We started on 16 this time. 16 through 20. No, 15 through 20. I don't know where I am, apparently, y'all. It's been a busy day.
Who am I?
So, at the end of last time, Lift had walked away, and then they got this idea, like, wait, what if they're doing the same thing that we're doing? And she turned around to run back, and we cut to, she has come back. She's talking to the scribe, the one that she keeps calling Fat, who is like, oh yeah, that was like this team in room 232. That woman you described hired them like 2 weeks ago for this project. So apparently these guys have been in town for 2 weeks at least, hunting down the supposed Radiant. And Nail almost certainly hasn't been here for 2 weeks. So you get, like, did he send them on this mission? And then he showed up the other day and he's like, you guys still haven't figured out who it is?
Also, I guess, like, he figured I could just do it at my leisure. So I was giving them a chance, but, like, I guess I'm just going to have to take care of this now.
Right. Yeah. He's just like, fine.
Also being willing, which I know we haven't gotten there yet, but also being willing to just, like, let those disciples be killed. It's just like, okay.
Yeah, I guess he's, I don't know, did he express any, when we get that, I don't remember, did he express any feelings about that one way or another?
I don't think it even addresses that he knows, except for the crab guy says he knows.
Mm-hmm. And so this lady's like, the scribe's like, man, you'd think that I'd be the one to get told everything, but half the time, I don't think even the kings know what the hell's going on. I got to get to my assigned station. You would be wise to seek shelter. Like, she's not a bad lady. She's like, hey, yeah, she's helping Lift out. She's like, hey, you should get somewhere safe. And Lift's just like, sure will, but great, bye. And then Bidlel will have already evacuated. The door will be locked. Don't break anything. It's okay. The Emperor already said he'll pay for whatever she breaks, man. Voidbringer, can you find whatever number she just said? It was 3 numbers, a 2, a 3, and another 2. Like,
oh, that's so good. It's like, how is this hard for you to remember? It was 3 numbers.
Good, because I don't got that many toes. I mean, if you look at it as a 232, yes, you don't have that many toes. It's true. But you could do a 2 on one hand and a 3 on another hand and then 2 toes, and you'd be there. And we've heard that the orders were given to turn the Parshmen out, and she's feeling bad about them. Like, there's not that many Parshmen in the city, but, like, they're just going to be sent out into the storm. That sucks. But then again, they might turn into Voidbringers, so Wendell had implied, and he would know, right? Hopefully Dak will be satisfied that by the time we get to the end of this, I think she's accepted that Wendell may not be a Voidbringer.
Yeah, that's kind of a nice little touch at the end.
And as they approach, she hears the woman's voice. You call that a lead? Weren't you in the guard? He's like, things work differently in the Azir. You expect a Tashiki street informant to be perfectly clear? And he's like, yeah, isn't that his job? So I guess his lead, quote unquote, was just like a street informant that he thought would be able to tell him what he needed to know. I guess that didn't work out. And then as these two pass by and Lift is hiding, who comes behind them but the assassin in white. And the assassin's like, I don't know, Sword Nimi. I don't trust my own mind any longer. And then
What does that mean? Why is he calling him Nimi?
Nimi is an honorific similar to the Japanese san, is what. And this is specifically about the Stormlight Archive. So it's just like an honorific.
Okay. All right. Wow. So he's leaning into the fact that he's saying the Shin are like Japanese-esque.
I don't know. Yeah, everything I see is just it's like that. It's like san. So okay, well, there you go. And he pauses for a second as if listening to something. He's like, that is not comforting, Sword Nimi. No, it is not. And so I was like, what did Nightblood say?
He's like, if you're crazy, then that means you could just let me kill everybody, or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Or if you're crazy and become evil, then I'll just kill you and everything will be fine.
Maybe Nightblood's like, hey, yeah, I'll help you figure out who's evil. And it's just like, I already know better than to trust you.
That's not necessarily true. He
just met him. We don't know.
No, because later he's like, yeah, the sword said you were good. So.
And then there's a moment where Lift thinks that he saw her, but then he keeps moving. So it's like, he must not have seen me. And then they have to find a way into a room to listen to what's going on. We're going to have to get past the starving assassin himself. And Wendell's like, no, I'll do it. They probably can't see me. I'll go in and listen and come back. He's like such a scaredy cat. Like, I don't know if it's even possible to kill a Spren. I don't know that we've ever seen that happen or even hurt one for that matter. But he's terrified.
Yeah. At least not in the way that he's talking about.
Yeah, I guess Lift asks, like, can you get killed? And he's like, destroyed. It's not the same as a human, but maybe this is too dangerous for me. And it's such a contrast to Pattern, who loves sneaking into places and listening and then coming and repeating it exactly for Shalon.
I love stealing. I love taking things.
Yeah. And I love, he's like, look, if something happens, scream as loud as you can. And he's like, right, listen and scream. I can listen and scream. I'm good at these things. And he goes off. And she's actually worried about him while he's gone. Like, oh man, are they torturing him? Are they going to threaten to cut down his gardens or something? I don't even. And then we get, when she's left alone to introspect, it gets kind of deep and sad, where she starts thinking about like how her mother was so warm and kind and took care of everyone. It was incredible. Anyone on Roshar should be as good to people as she had been. She shouldn't have had to die. At least she should have had someone half as wonderful as she was to take care of her. Someone other than Lift, who was selfish and stupid and lonely.
That is sad.
Yeah.
I wonder what happened to her mom. I mean, I know we obviously don't know, but
That's a good question.
Maybe I think she said she got sick, right?
Yeah, I was about to say, I have the impression in my head that she got sick, and I don't know if it's explicitly stated or not. It says as she wasted away, which sounds like a sickness thing. And eventually, let's see, as she's hiding there, the assassin goes by, and this time he like flicks a sphere at her. So she's lit up, and he definitely does see her now. And he pulls the sword out just a little bit, black smoke pouring out, and she feels nauseous. And he watches her, and then snaps the sword back in and leaves. Which you can remember that Vasher used the partially unsheathed sword as like a litmus test, because evil people would go nuts and go after it, and good people would just feel kind of nauseous. Yeah.
So that was I think our indication of like, oh, she's good, which we already know lifts like,
right.
You know, she's silly, but she's good.
It's interesting that Seth already knows how to do this.
Yeah, I'm wondering how much time passed between. I mean, what, about a month did they say that the storm would come again, or that it would go back over them again, or I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't
remember.
Said
a specific amount of time.
Yeah, I'm not certain either. We'll have to look back at that. It's supposed to show up less often, than the high storm, but that doesn't
right. Because it just goes across the world and then comes back around, right?
Yeah.
So however long it takes, I guess, for it to do that.
And Lift's like, storming, mother of the world and father of storms above. He about made me die of fright. And Wendell's like, I know. Did you hear me not whimpering? I was too frightened to even make a sound. And then he has to report, like, they know who it is. They're heading it right now to go after and kill this person. So maybe we should follow them. She's like, yeah, how hard can that be, right? Turned out it was way hard. She goes outside, like it's hard enough following them out of the building, but then when they get outside, they just fly away. And she's like, they can fly. Why in damnation can't I fly?
That's I would feel the same way. I'd be like, what? I slide across stuff. They can fly.
Oh, yeah, that does feel a little bit, that's not fair. Yeah. They can't heal other people, though, so you got that going for you.
Guess.
Not that they seem like the kind who would want to. Maybe that's part of the reason certain orders get certain stuff.
Yeah.
And the woman's like, are you coming, assassin? And Seth's like, nope, I've danced that storm before on the day I died. I am not doing it again. You're never going to make it into the order at this rate. And she flies off, and it's like, you guys are going to be dead, so I guess there's some openings maybe.
Also, like, they're talking to him like he has a lot to learn. It's like, bitch, I killed like 20 kings. Like, I think I know what I'm doing.
You even know who I am. Like,
Yeah.
why are you questioning me?
Yeah. Who are you? I am the assassin in white. Everybody knows me. Who are you?
I mean, I guess that doesn't necessarily mean you'd make a good Skybreaker if they have, their own sort of code that they're following.
I guess, but still.
He wasn't hunting down lawbreakers. He was hunting down powerful men who were they probably also weren't great. Powerful people usually aren't the best, but what can you do?
Dalinar was okay.
That's true.
Dalinar was good.
Yeah.
That's true.
He was hunting
You
down
can make
who
the
he was told.
argument, though.
Yeah, just whoever he's told.
Yeah. You could probably make the argument that most kings have violated laws, though, of some kind.
I bet you at some point, putting this Kingdom of Alethkar together, Dalinar had to violate a law or two.
Oh, yeah. He was the Blackthorn, man. Who are you talking about?
And so, yeah, they fly off, and Lift comes out, and Seth's like, you're the one he's hunting for, aren't you? And Lift is like, I ain't nobody. Yeah, he kills nobodies. You don't? And he goes, I kill kings. And it's like, which is totally better. That's fair.
This is one of my favorite conversations in this novella, because she just keeps going, okay.
It's like, because he goes, it's not. I hear their screams, their demands whenever I see a shadow. They haunt me, scramble for my mind, wishing to claim my sanity. I fear they've already won. And she's like, okay then.
It's so funny. It's like, it's such an adult thing to do. It's just like, okay, moving along from that.
What'd you say, Jamie? I only caught part of it.
I was just saying that I loved that reaction. I was like, okay.
At that point, I would be like, I'll see you later then. But she's like, but I mean, you didn't attack me. And he goes, no, the sword likes you. She's like, great. Well, I like the sword too, so.
That's nice. Let's make sure the sword and I stay friends, okay?
All right, bye. Yeah.
Bye.
I gotta go. Nice meeting you. Try not to kill anybody else. See ya.
But she's like, do you know where they're going? And Seth's like, yeah, there's a report of a man spotted vanishing by several people in the city. So they think he's a Lightweaver because he goes down an alley and then disappears. Which we've seen Shallan do that, so that makes sense. And she's like, is it legal to go and execute a guy for disappearing? And Nin has procured an injunction from the prince forbidding surge binding within the country except for that specifically authorized. So just surge binding in general is now a crime in this country unless you have permission to do it. So, and presumably the Skybreakers have permission. And he's like, I believe the Herald's experience with you taught him just go straight to the top and not mess around with local authorities, because she got pardoned by the Emperor. And he's like, shit, I didn't think about that. I need to make sure that doesn't happen again. And she's like, he really is wrong, isn't he? Like that, you said he's a herald. Like he says Voidbringers aren't back, but they are. And Seth's like, yeah, the new storm reveals it. But who am I to say? I'm crazy. And again, I think the herald might be too, which makes me think he's right. We should seek a greater law. But what good is we need to seek something greater than ourselves, rather. But what good is seeking the law when the law can be changed by men? And then once again, as Joe said, she's like, okay, then. Well, you can be crazy all you want. It's fine. I like crazy people. It's funny when they lick walls and eat rocks and stuff. And he's can you tell me where they're going? And he's like, you won't be able to outrun them. She's like, so there's no harm in telling me, right? And he says, yeah, okay, fine. So the guy's an old philosopher in the immigrant quarter, sits in an amphitheater most days, talking to anybody who will listen, right near. And she's like, oh, shit, Toshi's Light Orphanage. I should have guessed he's almost as weird as you are. And she takes off after them. And she engages her awesomeness and starts sliding down the street and then falls down and hits a wall after like a second. And then she tries again and the same thing happens. And she's like, this is so not fair. Like, I have to run and they get to fly.
Was she just like not concentrating on what she was doing, or did she not have enough to sustain her, or it's just the terrain was particularly difficult to navigate?
Well, I mean, we saw her at the beginning of the story trying it too, and she kept tripping on stuff out in the middle of the like grasslands. I think she's just not good at this yet.
Yeah, okay.
I think like when she's doing it, trying to go super fast, she's not super great at it.
She needs to walk before she can run, you think?
Yeah, I mean, because I think when we saw her in the main book, all of the stuff that she was doing was in a pretty controlled spaces. It wasn't like across a long distance and stuff. And I think that's probably what she has more trouble with.
Well, in the book, she was also sliding around on her knees, and in this, at the beginning, she's like, "No, I want to like learn to like do it on my feet so I can be all cool."
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So it's just she needs more practice, I think. And also, she's like, I think it's 13 or 14 at this point. I went back and looked, and it was like she'd been 10 for 3 years, is what the previous one said. So she's like 13 at this point. And, you know, that's an awkward age to be trying to do anything, quite frankly. But the Stormlight helps her at least run without getting tired the whole way. So that's good. But the storm's already coming up by the time she gets there. And the amphitheater's empty. Everyone's gone. And Lift used up all of her power running here. So that's not good. And hold on. Does it talk about? Yeah, she hears a scream from down the alleyway, which is terrifying. And as she's like steeling herself to go down the alleyway, there's a voice and the stump has come out. It's like, what are you doing? You're supposed to go to one of the bunkers, idiot child. Don't think just because you're here, I'll take care of you. And she thinks that Lift like screamed out here to like get attention. And Lift's like, I have one meal left. And she's like, I have half a mind to give it to the other children. A prank like that, standing around screaming. Let's see. And so she has as she's waiting for this food, seeing all the other kids, she has kind of a moment where either she gets some clarity or she's finally willing to admit to Wendell. But she's like, you remember when you asked me today what I wanted? I want control. Not like a king or anything, but I want to be able to control my own life just a little bit. I want to be the one who chooses what happens to me. And he's like, I mean, that sounds reasonable. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, and then the little boy Mick comes back, and he seems perfectly fine now. And he's like, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not an orphan. I've still got a mom. And she thinks I must have healed him somehow.
Yeah, and I wasn't sure what to make about that until we find out later what happened. But
right. And so the stump gives her some food. It's pancakes. The pancakes were cold and unfortunately of a variety she had already tried. The ones with sweet stuff in the middle. So this did not count towards her. I think we may have hit 8 in the last episode. So we've got 2 pancakes left that we need.
Yeah, I think so.
And so she doesn't count towards those, sadly. And she finally here, she like gets her courage up and slips outside when the stump is not looking. And she's going to head down that alley, assuming that she's going to find an old man dead down there. And it's real dark outside. So she comes out and can't see much of what's going on. And Wendell's like, oh, I don't like this place. There's something wrong here. And I like as she's creeping down at one point, she's like, how long is this alleyway? Jeez, seems like I've been down here forever. And then she trips over something and she's like, oh no, it's a body. And she starts thinking like, I'll remember you, old man. But it turns out that, that's not the old man. It's the woman, the Skybreaker apprentice or whatever. She dead. And then she starts hearing like skittering, clicking sounds. And there's red lightning flashing.
Yeah, that was some creepy stuff when the skittering started.
Yeah, this is the stuff of horror movies.
Yeah, because at first I was like, oh, that guy's a Radiant, so like he just, he beat him up, he killed him. But then like you're like, wait, what happened? Because like I just imagine, it wasn't on page, but I just imagine him being like, go body, and like all the crabs like just cover them and like poke their eyes out and stuff.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's horrifying.
Yeah, I mean, what else? How else would it have happened? You know,
Skittering is just not a friendly, happy word in general. Sorry. And then she sees the guy also. The lightning like flashes, and she sees the man dead as well. And she's like, "Holy crap! They're both dead." And then a voice is like, "I heard an interesting idea once while traveling in a land you will never visit. There are people who believe that each day when they sleep, they die. That their consciousness does not continue, and a new soul is born into the body when it awakes."
yeah, I don't know where this guy's from, but he's creepy. I almost at first thought he might have been a Khandra, but I'm like, no, Khandra don't do this.
I guess a Khandra might could do what this person's doing.
I don't know. How would could he be multiple organisms forming into one? I don't feel like we know enough about their limitations, but I mean, it is like Khandra do watch people, so under somebody's orders. So I mean, it's possible, but I don't know. It just doesn't seem quite right.
Trying to imagine Tensoon turning into like a bunch of little things.
Yeah, I mean, he prefers to be a dog now and forever, I guess.
They have those 2 spikes that they need to retain sentience. So I don't know that if they divide it up into something smaller, then I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I like his point. It's like, I mean, would you know? Like, is there any way that you could say for sure that that's not what happens? If you retain all of your memories and everything, then maybe you do have a new soul every day. Who knows? And she's like, "What are you?" And like, as he's talking, she sees the walls like moving, like they're covered in oil.
Nope.
Yeah, no. And he's like, what I find most interesting is how the society even continues. Like, you would assume if you woke up every day thinking today was your only day on Earth, that you'd be going out and just doing like whatever you wanted to do. But no, they live more or less like anybody else.
I guess if that belief is normalized and they get to continue their conscience, even though they're different souls, they probably have decided, I'm a small piece of this life form's, time. But I would be interested to know what their views on death are then, because it's like if they think that they die, did they think, oh, a new soul just didn't inhabit this body this time? Like, what would be death for them? But
that's an interesting point. I hadn't thought about that. Because I mean, I could see if there's some sort of massive physical damage, like your head gets chopped off. They're like, well, a new soul's not going to show up this time. That body can't work anymore. But if it was more like a dying of old age sort of thing, then yeah, it would seem a little.
Well, maybe they're making the same argument then. Like, this body's not inhabitable for a new soul because it was too old.
Okay, yeah, just stop. It's like having a car. At some point, you just can't. It's not worth selling on anymore. But as he's finishing up his thoughts on this, she starts to make out the shape of him. Basically man shape, but with chunks missing. Also, he was naked, but he's got holes like all over. No blood, though. And then she sees things climbing up his legs. They're kremlings. That was the skittering sound. Thousands and thousands of kremlings. Little beasts of chitin with legs clicking away and making that awful buzz.
Yeah, because that's normal. That's what we wanted, right?
And the longer the description goes on, the worse I feel about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's a kremling with like a bulbous protrusion on its back, and it climbs up into his eye hole, and then she's like, oh, wait, the bulbous part is the eye.
Ugh.
Cool,
and he's gradually filling out as new kremlings like interlock into place to make the form of a body.
Yeah, this is fine. Everything's fine.
I mean, points for imagination, Brandon.
Right?
But,
yeah. So creepy to imagine. Yep. And once again, she's like, what are you? And he goes, just another refugee. You needn't fear me. Your war is my war and has been for millennia. Ancient Radiance named me friend and ally before everything went wrong. What a wonder those days are. And she's like, you killed those people. And he's like, well, yeah, in self-defense. Well, okay.
It almost sounds like he's a type of spren, but I don't know.
Yeah. Well, he also, didn't he make reference to axes?
He does. Yep, we're going to get there in a minute.
Hmm.
He goes, I guess it wasn't really self-defense. They couldn't have killed me, but They did ask in not so many words for a contest, and I gave it to them. But you did not come for a contest, did you? We watched the others, the assassin, the surgeon, the liar, the high prince, but not you. The others all ignore you, and that, I hazard to predict, is a mistake. So do you guys remember? Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say the assassin, Seth, the surgeon, Kaladin, the high prince, Dalinar, the liar, Shallan. That's who I figured those names were attached to.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Do you guys happen to remember another time that we've seen those people referred to in that way?
Was it the back of the book?
It is the back of the book.
The blurb.
Yes. So in universe, it's not necessarily this, like, because the back of the book, as I've said, is like an in-universe thing. It's a character in universe saying these things. Not necessarily this guy, but one of these guys.
Mm-hmm. One of the other watching guys.
Is who is writing the back of the book things.
It's such an interesting notion to even have like the blurb stuff on the back of the book be written by an in-universe character. Like that's just different thinking, I feel like, as far as book design goes.
Right.
So that's cool, kind of like, I mean, it's a cool idea for sure, but it's also like a nice execution of more in-world stuff.
Yeah, and it's I feel like if you did that in another book, it would be a character that you knew in the first book when they're writing this on the back of the book. It's not somebody that we've even met after the first two books who's been writing these things. That's a very long
that
play.
We know of. Yeah,
right, yeah. We could have been somebody that we saw and didn't realize, yeah. Okay, so she notes that, like, the Kremlings, when they fit themselves together, you can still see lines across his skin, but they're almost lost in the wrinkles of an aged body. So this guy... It's not even a guy. He's a counterfeit man. Hundreds of Kremlings, like, stacked on top of each other, like 3 raccoons in an overcoat or something. And there's still a bunch more scuttling around on the walls. So, yeah, it's still creepy.
3 raccoons in an overcoat. That's oddly specific. Has she seen 3 raccoons in an overcoat?
I feel like it's an illustration I've seen somewhere. And he tells her, if you flee, he will kill the one that you wanted to save. And Liz's like, oh, I'm sure you're fine. And the guy's like, oh, no. Those 2 fools got the wrong one. But Nail, he knows. Now, there's someone else. He stalks them tonight and will complete his task. Nail, madman, herald of justice, is not one to leave business unfinished. And he notes that this is a cool place as he wraps himself in a shikwa again. I have an excuse to cover my entire body so people don't notice. I spent thousands of years breeding my hordlings, and still I can't make them fit together quite right.
What does that mean?
I can pass for human almost as well as a Sia can these days, I'd hazard. But anyone who looks closely finds something off. So he's spent thousands of years breeding these little crab things to stack up together and make the form of a person almost perfectly, but not quite perfectly enough. And I want to see if we've heard the term Sia before, because I think we have, but I don't remember for sure. So let me look it up.
The singer-songwriter Sia?
Now I've just got Crabman swinging from a chandelier.
Yeah. From the chandelier.
Yeah.
All his hordlings are the chandelier.
Everything is hordlings.
Yeah.
My whole world is hordlings.
Way back in the first book, when we met Axes the Collector, he thinks, here's the bit, perhaps he drew stares because of his blue nails and crystalline deep blue eyes. Amiens, even Sia Amiens, were rare.
Oh.
Okay.
So we took from that Amia, and if you guys remember on the map, Amia is like a little big island thing off to the left side of the continent. But we took from that there's at least more than one kind of Amian, and Axes was a Sia Amian. And so this guy is maybe another kind of Amian.
And they're not human?
That seems to be what he's saying. Yeah, like even Axes, it says pass for human almost as well as a Sia. So even Axes isn't quite human.
Interesting.
And she asks him, what do you know about darkness and its plans and radiance and voidbringers and everything? And he's like, well, that's a lot of stuff that you asked about. Really, I'm the wrong one to ask. My siblings are more interested in you, Radiance. If you ever encounter another of the sleepless, tell them you've spoken with Arklow. I'm certain it will gain you sympathy.
All right, so he's a vampire from Twilight. We get it.
So yes, this guy is one of the sleepless, and I'm trying to think. Oh yes, so that's not the kind of answer I wanted. He's like, I'm not here to answer you, human. I'm here because I'm interested, and you are the source of my curiosity.
Rude.
When one achieves immortality, one must find purpose beyond the struggle to live, as old Axes always said. So I guess they're immortal, also, which makes sense. He said he's been around for thousands of years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Immortal or eternally youthful? Well, he did say they can't kill me.
He did say that.
I don't buy it. I feel like there's a way to kill this thing.
So
Kill this thing. Not that like he seems like a bad being. Like
No, I'm not saying
he's
kill it
creepy,
with
but
fire. I'm just saying I don't buy that it's mortal.
yeah.
he is creepy, though. And apparently there's more of them hanging around, and they're interested in the Radiance. Which is why I was like, I don't know that it's this guy writing the back of the book. I think it's probably one of the other ones, his siblings that he talks about, who are interested in the Radiance.
Interesting though that you've pointed out he uses the exact same like naming for these characters. So unless they all get together and have a talk about them and they've just assumed that's what they're like, that's how they refer to them specifically, or
Yeah, maybe they all chat now and then, and that's the names they've come up with for them. I love that Shallan is the liar, because I mean she is, but
I mean, that is kind of what she does. Almost all of her power, besides the part that she doesn't know how to use well, is about lying.
so I pointed a few notes out to you, like bits that we've seen before and that kind of connect. I will mention one other thing that Brandon has said, and that is be on the lookout for when the text specifically calls out that there's like a weird Kremling over there that is often, maybe not always, but often one of these hordlings that belongs to one of these sleepless, like watching for one reason or another.
Okay, so they don't look like normal Kremlings, I'm assuming, if the description is there's a weird Kremling.
They don't necessarily have to. Like he said that he spent thousands of years breeding his to look a certain way so that he can pretend to be human. So it gives the impression that you can breed them to look how you want.
That's weird.
yes, he's got specifically to look like an eyeball, so that might look like
Yeah.
a Kremling.
That would look
Yeah,
like
that-
a real weird Kremling. Yep.
The more I hear about this guy, the weirder he is.
And there's a piece of art in the wiki article that shows like the eyeball crawling in, and I'm not gonna post that. It's super creepy looking. We don't need that. But yes, if you ever go back and reread the books we've already read, there are a few times when it gets called out that especially one of these people, if it's the perspective of like a Kaladin or Shallan or one of the people that they say they're watching, I feel like that's when you see it most often, is you get calls out. It's like, there's like a weird Kremling on the wall over there. That's a thing.
I am constantly amazed at how much has to go into these books before these books are written. Like, just a moment to appreciate Brandon's brain.
Right?
Like, to bury things like that, like there's a weird Kremling there. Like, did he already know there was the Kremling man? Like, how can you build this? And I realize like you don't write a book from start to finish and go, there's my finished product, and you go and put things back in. But just the amount of creativity and visibility of future planning that goes into these before, like he hasn't finished the series.
Right.
Look at how much is already planted in there to go back and get these little gems that he's planted through the story. Like, just a moment to just go, that it's amazing.
Yeah, the amount of foresight involved, which, I mean, he's obviously a very character-driven author, it seems, and so I wouldn't be surprised, which Data may have some insight into this if he's listened to, like, lectures or things that he's given, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's just one of those guys that sits and writes down a bunch of cool character ideas and then builds his story around those cool characters he wants to introduce.
Yeah.
I know a lot of authors do that, right? They'll write like a book of characters that they're like, I want to have this kind of character and this kind of character and this kind of character. So, do you have any insight on that, Data? What his process is when he's writing stuff like this?
Obviously, there's a lot of planning that goes into this ahead of time, and like you say, it seems like did he already have Crab Guy in mind? We know that as far back as the first book, he already had these guys writing the back of the book, so he must have had an idea. I know that when he's actually writing, he writes the books, these big books in particular, like in perspectives. Like he'll do all the Dalinar bits first, maybe, or like in storylines. Like
Interesting.
he'll write like one storyline first, and then he'll go back and write the other storyline, and then later on kind of fit them together.
Wow, that
Yeah.
is an interesting way to do that.
I'm sure it's easier sometimes than others. Like in the first book with Shallan and Yasna completely separated from like Kaladin and Dalinar, it was probably easy to write like Kaladin chapters and Dalinar chapters and Shallan chapters pretty much separately. But
Yeah, that makes sense when we had all our characters separated.
in this one, I'm sure it may have been harder to, yeah. But I think he talked about it when he did like the fifth book, is when I heard about it a lot in things that he said. And I think in the fifth book, there's some separated stories that make it easier once again. So he may not have done that same thing for this second one, because it really is mostly them together. So clearly he's done a whole lot of planning beforehand, but I don't know the extent of it. I know that he also does have a whole team of like editors and stuff that help him make sure all the continuity and all the details are correct. So that must help.
You have to.
Yeah.
Have to.
I will also point
I
out.
feel like it'd be way too much for one brain to manage otherwise.
I will also point out that at the end of the book that we just read, in the epilogue, Hoyd is sitting on a rock talking to an ugly lizard crab.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I believe Brandon has confirmed that is in fact a Hordling, and whether or not Hoyd knew that what or who he was talking to, I don't know.
I feel like he had to know. He's like, okay, weird lizard thing. I know you're belong to somebody. Like, chill out, bro.
Yeah.
Oh.
It seems like something he would know.
You would, yeah. You would think, right? But yeah, so stuff to look out for on reread if you're ever doing that. Sorry, where were we here? Oh yeah, she's talking to the guy. You seem to have found a purpose in talking a bunch without being helpful to nobody, she says. I'm helping with far more than your little personal problem. I'm building a philosophy. You see, child, I can grow what I need. Is my mind becoming full? I breed new Hordlings specialized in holding memories. Do I need to sense what's going on in the city? Hordlings with extra eyes or antenna to taste and hear can solve that.
Oh,
Given time, I can make my body nearly anything I need.
that's so weird.
Right?
Yeah.
I wonder how far that extends. Like, can he breed Hordlings to help him understand a language by making them a new piece of brain? Like, how does that work? Or is the brain the thing that doesn't change? I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, that's an interesting. Like, could you breed? He can breed more that specialize in holding memories. So could you breed more that specialize in like that other specific mind work? Like, I need to see an infrared. I'll evolve a piece of brain that helps me, or like I need to echolocate like a bat. I'm going to evolve a thing that sends out those echoes and a piece of brain that interprets them when they come back.
Yeah. I know Kung Fu. Like he could do it all, like the Matrix.
He tells her that Darkness is hunting who he's looking for right now. He will know that his minions have failed.
I'm glad my minions never fail. But I treat my minions nicer than he does.
And so he's like, oh, you want me to tell you some information? Well, what are you going to give me? And she's like, what if I've been lying all along? What if I'm not strictly awesome? What if I don't know what to do? He's like, well, instinct will guide you, I'm sure. But that's been her problem. She's not sure like what she's supposed to do. What if instinct doesn't guide us? What if everybody's frightened and nobody has the answers? I left Azir because I was afraid. Came to Sheik because that's where my starving feet took me. But tonight, I decided to be here. Like, she's coming to some realizations about herself. And he's like, what's this nonsense? How does this help me? And that's when she puts it together. I didn't heal that boy. The stump is trading for spheres because she needs infused ones. Probably because she feeds on them without realizing it. She's healing these kids.
I like how there's a moment there where Crab Guy's like, hey, this is about me, not you.
Right? I love it's like she doesn't realize she's healing them, so she thinks the kids are faking it when they show up. Like they're just coming to get food. And then he sighs, like, you didn't help me at all. Whatever. We'll speak another time. Like Nail, I am not one to leave tasks unfinished. Yeah, exactly. So she's going to go in and try to save the stump. And she finds the door has been cut down, probably by a shard blade, given what it looks like. And she hears the kids whimpering inside. And Wendell's like, you can't fight him. And she knows. There are words you must speak. And Lift shouts, darkness, the one they call Nin or Nail, Naku the judge, I am here. And he shows up upstairs. I'm surprised to see you accept judgment. Yeah, the day the Almighty was handing out brains to folks, I went out for flatbread that day. But I got back when he was handing out looks. What kept you? And I like she's like, the insult had no effect, though it was one of her favorites.
It's like a Pokemon attack. It's like Leer. It's like, it's ineffective. Oh no.
Lift used burn. It was ineffective.
Yeah.
It had
not
no
very
effect.
effective. Oh man, Lift. That actually was a good joke. I like that joke here where she's like, oh man, that's one of my best insults. And he didn't even flinch. Wow. And I do like flatbread.
Yeah, And they sort of start mixing it up a little bit. She's trying to avoid him, and he's trying to hit her. And he says, "You're an insult to the order you would claim." And she's like, "Sure, probably." Storms,
Yeah, cool.
I'm an insult to my own self most days. And he goes, "Of course you are." And then, wait, that sentence had no meaning. And she sticks out her tongue at him. "Mistress, do you have a plan?" And she's like, "I can make Stormlight." Yes, baffling but true. Well, he can't, and spheres are red because, spheres are rare because it's been a long time since we had Ice Storm, and even that surprise one, most people didn't stick out their spheres to be recharged. So she's going to try to run him out, basically. Run out his Stormlight when she can keep making more as long as she gets food. And he's like, "I'm sorry that I have to do this," Darkness says. "Once I would have welcomed you as a sister." And she goes, "You're not really sorry, are you? Can you even feel that anymore?" And he stops and thinks about it. And he's like, you know what? I can't. I finally released myself from the guilt I felt from doing my duty. Honor has suffused me, changed me. It has been a long time coming. Great. So you're like some kind of emotionless friend now? And Wendell's like, hey, that's insulting. Thank you, Wendell. Very helpful. No, I'm merely...
Shut up, Voidbringer.
I'm a man perfected. Men need light, child, although we are in darkness. To feel guilt at following a code with precision is wasted emotion. And she's like, oh, but other emotions aren't a waste. There are many useful emotions, which you totally feel all the time. He's like, of course I do. And then he starts thinking about it again. And she tries to make a break for it. He grabs a knife and slams it, not into her, but he catches her clothing and pins her to the ground. And she's like, oh, I can't slip out of that. Damn it.
Clothing, my one weakness.
And then as he's about to kill her, the stump shows up and hits him with a big piece of wood. Leave my kids alone, you monster. That's bold. Man with a shard blade, and you're taking him on with a piece of wood to protect kids. Respect, Stump. And he hurts her, knocks her down, and he tells Lift, like, hey, she's still alive, but she's bleeding and unconscious. She doesn't know how to feed on Stormlight in this state. She's too new. He's trying to, like, bait Lift into getting closer, because Lift has managed to slip away from the knife thing that had her trapped. And Lift says, I don't know what to do. And Wendell says, say the words. And she says, I said them in my heart. And then thinks, but what good would they do? I can't beat him. I've got to change him. And then she thinks, she's been thinking this whole time about listening to people and what difference that can make. And now she thinks, I need to listen. And she moves forward. And as he's gonna kill the Stump, he's like, oh, you're going to leave her to die. And she moves in and blocks the blow that's coming with her weapon, a silvery rod that glowed in the darkness. And Wendell goes, ow, in her head. I assume it doesn't really hurt. I think Wendell's just a whiner. But you think you can fight me, child? I who have lived immortal lives. I who have slain demigods and survived desolations. And she says, I will listen to those who have been ignored. What? I heard what you said, Darkness. You're trying to prevent the desolation. Look behind you. Deny what you're seeing. The red lightning. There's Parshmen out there who've been thrown out of the city, and you can see their eyes glowing. He goes, no. An isolated event. Parshmen who had survived with their forms. She says, "You failed. It's come." And it says, strangely, something within him emerged. He drops his sword and he thinks, Jezreel, Ishar, it is true, I failed. And he starts weeping. I failed weeks ago. I knew it then. Oh God, the Almighty, it has returned. And she says, I'm sorry. And he looks up at her and says, you actually are. I wasn't always like this. I am getting worse, aren't I? It's true. And she goes, I don't know. And he goes up and just hugs him. And it says he clung to her, this monster, this callous thing that had once been a herald. He clung to her and wept in the storm. Then he pushes away from her and flies off into the sky.
Yeah, a little anticlimactic, a little bit like, okay, what? But, I mean, I kind of get it.
I like the way that he takes... he thinks that we would be expecting a big fight, although I don't think there's any way Lift could have won a fight with this guy.
Yeah. No, I don't think so.
But he's using like the thematic nature of each of these different orders and what they do, like what their specialty is, to help them resolve each issue. And I think that works. It's illustrated really well here, where she takes this guy who might be an unbeatable opponent in most cases, and through the thing that makes these edge dancers special, like resolves the situation. And we cut to chapter 20, I think that's our last chapter, yeah. So you don't have to be a sword. And Wendell's like, a sword is traditional. So we find out some details here. All we knew from Syl was that she could be different things. He says it has to be metal. Our power, when condensed and metal, there's like a connection there. Which we know metal on Scadrial, at least, like had some sort of power. So there seems to be maybe a relation there.
Yeah, like the gods' bodies were made out of metal, so maybe the shard powers, all the shard powers are connected to metal in some way.
Could be. He says he's heard of stories of Spren becoming bows. It's like, I don't know how they make the string though. And she's thinking, who cares about bows and swords and stupid stuff? This has all kinds of possibilities. And Wendell's like, I do wonder what I'd look like as a sword. I don't want to be a sword that somebody swings, obviously. But like, there's something stately about a shard blade, something to be displayed. I'd make a fine one, I should think, very regal. And there's a knock at the door. She's still at the orphanage, I believe here, and the Stump comes in with a big plate of pancakes. And Lift's like, so these are your pancakes, right? And the Stump's like, why does that matter? It matters a ton. Those aren't for the kids. You was gonna eat those yourselves, right? And she goes, a dozen pancakes. Sure, we'll pretend that I was going to eat them all myself. And we find out who was at the door. It was Mick's mom come to take her child back. Good for him. It's an off-screen moment. And we didn't spend all that much time with Mick, but it makes me happy to know that that's the ending of that story for him. And the Stump's like, Lift has explained, I guess, that she's like, I've been healing the children, you're sure? Yeah, you should have a weird little thing hanging around you. Not me, something weirder. Like a vine? And the Stump's like, a spren, not a vine, but like light reflected on a wall from a mirror.
I don't know what that means.
And Wendell... Sorry.
Early.
Say it again?
It could just be that early, you know, when Kaladin first sort of met Syl. She was like very much Windspren. You know, yeah. He had obviously been using his abilities long before he'd realized. So maybe she's doing that subconscious healing of the kids, but it's so early that she hasn't actually gotten to that point yet.
It could be, yeah. I'm trying to think, like, what would Wendell have looked like when Lift first met him? Like, Syl, like you said, was a Windspren. She was basically like a little ribbon in the air most of the time. I wonder, was Wendell a bit of light reflecting on a wall? Was he like a tiny vine that kept, like a little flower that kept popping up behind you?
It was a teeny tiny chair.
Tiny chair. That would be great. Lift's like, I've seen that little chair before. This is weird. But she looks over at Wendell, who nods at this description. So apparently it fits, whatever it is. And she's like, yeah, sure, that'll do. Congrats, you're a starving Night Radiant, Stump. And Stump's like, I would have thought that Night's Radiant would be more majestic. I love that we never get a name for this woman. She's just the Stump. And then Lift turns Wendell into a large, shimmering, silvery fork and stabs the pancakes. But of course, since it's like a shard blade, it goes right through the plate and into the table. But she still manages to pry up a pancake with it. Majestic as damnation's own gonads, she proclaims. That's saying it fancy style, so my fork don't complain I'm being crass. Thanks, Lift. And then that scribe from earlier, I also love that it's almost like a Sean Spencer thing where every time that Lift thinks about or refers to that the Grand Indicium or whatever it's called in the middle of the city, she thinks of it as something else. Here it's the Grand Indifference.
And then later I think it's the Grand Indigestion.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I've heard it both ways. Wendell, you gooey chocolate chip cookie.
Oh, man, I need to watch some Psych again. Love that show.
Good show.
And so that scribe shows up, and she's like, normally I don't frequent such domiciles as this, but people usually come to me. And of course, Lift has to take that. Yeah, I can tell you obviously don't walk around very much. Can you just back off a little bit? Like, His Imperial Majesty has been somewhat cross with us for cutting off communication before. And she's like, yeah, how's the Empire doing anyway? Lift says, chewing on her pancake. Surviving, but in chaos. The smaller villages were hit the worst. The winds aren't as bad as the high storm, but the storm lasts longer because it moves more slowly, I guess. The worst was the lightning, which struck many who were unlucky enough to be out traveling. Yeah, that sucks. His Imperial Majesty is pleased you contacted me and asked for details of your health. Tell him I ain't eaten nearly enough pancakes. And I got this strange wart on my toe that keeps growing back when I cut it off. I think because I heal myself with my awesomeness. Thanks, Lift.
That would be annoying.
And then she communicates to Gox, yeah, I found another Radiant, only she's real old and kind of looks like an underfed crab without no shell. And she looked to the stump and shrugged in a half apology. Surely she knew. She had mirrors, right? Well, it's just... See, this is that Lift that you're like, I don't know that I like you that much, Lift.
Yeah, we got some good Lift time where we're like, oh, there's some character development, some growth. And then now we're just like, okay, back to insulting everyone for no reason.
But she's actually kind of nice and takes care of kids. And then there's a whole thing where she talks about how, like, if we fight the Voidbringers, she can stare at them in a real mean way, and then they'll break down and tell her about the time they ate all the cookies and blamed it on Huisi, the girl who can't talk right. And then it says, Huisi snored away. She deserved it. So, okay. That's very Simpsons, actually. It's like, blame it on the guy who can't speak English, but that's neither here nor there. And so this pancake has a real thick, almost mealy texture. And she's like, all right, that's 9. So there, that's her 9th. What's the last one? And the stump's like, what do you mean the last one? There's 10 kinds of pancakes. That's why I came to this city. I've had 9. What's the last one? And they don't even have to ask, like, well, which ones have you had? Because obviously if she's eaten 9, they're like, oh yeah, the 10th one is dedicated to Tashi. It's more a thought than a real entity. We bake 9 and leave the last in memory of him. And Lift does not.
So you're
take
telling
it well.
me? No, she's like, you're telling me the 10th pancake's metaphorical. What the hell is wrong with you people?
That's good, Randall. Okay, Wendell, where'd that Skybreaker go? He's gonna hear about this. He lets you off on the whole money laundering thing on my insistence, but when he hears you've been lying about pancakes, I might not be able to hold him back. And then she says she's got to go to the bathroom, and she goes downstairs and just slips out into the city. And it's time for us to leave. And Wendell's like, oh, this is how it's going to be, isn't it? We're just going to wander the world, never putting down roots. But it makes sense that the guy whose plant would want to put down roots somewhere. And Liz says, you know what? I think we might wander back to Asmir this time and the palace. I figure that nobody knows what they're doing in life, right? So Gox and the Dusty Viziers need me. I got it figured out. You've got what figured out? Nothing at all, she says with confidence. And then as she starts to leave the city, the guard captain is back on duty dealing with refugees again. And Lift pulls a pancake out of her pocket. And she thinks, this woman got visited by darkness because of me. That's a debt. Tosses the woman the pancake, which was more of a pan ball at this point. But what are you going to do? And then she stops and starts healing the wounds on the refugees. And as they leave, Lift says a better night might just stay and heal everyone. And Wendell's like, that's a big project, maybe too big. And Lift goes, and too small at the same time. And as they head away. And Wendell's like, I was a very regal fork, wouldn't you say? Dude, very vain also for a Spren, I have to say. You know, Wendell, it's strange, but I'm starting to think you might not be a Voidbringer after all. That's the end of our story. And I will touch on the postscript just enough to note that Brandon says that he's grooming her for a larger role in the future of the series, Lift. But he knows that by the time she's a main character, she'll have sworn several oaths, and it feels wrong not to show the readers the context of her swearing those oaths. So that's why we get these little bits of Lift, is to show her growth when she is not going to be a main character for a while.
That's all right. Like, it's a good way to do it, especially if you know you want someone to show up later. That's not bad. Just pepper them throughout the story.
Yeah. I think that's a good use of the interludes, I feel like. And also, Nail was going to have this big change, and he's like, it felt wrong to have him do that off screen. So use Edgedancer to fix both those. We kill two birds with one stone there.
Yeah.
And I also like that he's like, part of why I love writing Lift is I get to slip character growth and meaningful moments into otherwise odd or silly sounding phrases, such as like the way that she says she's been 10 for 3 years, and which can be foreshadowing with a laugh, which then develops into the fact that she actually thinks her aging stopped at 10 and has good reason to think that. So yeah, I guess it does. I hadn't thought about it that way really before reading that, but we find out in this novella that she has a reason to think that she shouldn't be changing. So it recontextualizes that earlier thing where she says, I've been 10 for 3 years.
Yeah.
The original plan for the novella was 18,000 words or so. It ended up about 40,000. Oh, well, that just happens sometimes.
I like how he knows himself well enough to be like, yeah, well, what can you do?
What are you going to do? Yeah. So that's Edgedancer, and that is going to move us into Oathbringer for our next thing. So let me tell you guys the chapter titles in Oathbringer.
Oh, wow. We're going to do predigments from chapter titles already?
And we'll move into predigments. Yeah.
Oh, dude, I have no idea. I'm just going to say that right now. Don't know.
So we've got the prologue and the first 3 chapters of Oathbringer is what we'll be reading. The prologue is called To Weep, and then the first 3 chapters. Chapter 1 is Broken and Divided. Chapter 2 is One Problem Solved. And chapter 3 is Momentum. And actually, chapter 3, Momentum, is our first flashback chapter. So we're getting right into the flashbacks on this one.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. So, yeah, upon hearing the chapter titles, I still have no idea.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to reading the prologue and seeing whose perspective we get this time. I'm hoping maybe like a Navani perspective might be good for that night. It'd be interesting to maybe get little nods to like what Yasna was doing, and yeah, to see where that goes. But yeah, I really have got no idea where we're going to kick off. What happens off page and what doesn't. We thought that maybe some of them would split up, like Kaladin was going to go home. Maybe we start and he's already there. Like, I'm thinking maybe our characters don't start all together. But yeah, I don't know beyond that.
We know that Kaladin was heading off to see his family and warn them about the new storm. So yeah, it would make sense if at least he was separated from the others at first.
Yeah. Not sure what the others would do, but
yeah, I mean, that's where the big question isn't. What are the others going to do? They're up in this new tower that they're exploring. We know that Alethkar is in a little bit of chaos, or at least the capital is. They're not able to get straight answers, and this new storm is coming. Like, what do you do?
yeah.
Man, I don't know. To Weep, I mean, all the prologues so far, I think you've told us, are about the night Gavilar was killed.
Mm-hmm.
So really, To Weep just makes me think of the perspective that may be prologue-wise. I'm going to go with Navani on this one. I don't know why.
So you agree with Jamie that Navani is a good candidate?
Yeah. I mean, To Weep, it may be like her struggling with his death. We may even go a little farther with it than just the night in question. Maybe not. But yeah, I agree. Navani's a good candidate for sure. I'm not sure who else, that Weeping would be referencing, but because at first I was like prologue, the Weeping, because of where we were in the story. Technically it was during the Weeping, but the prologue is, if it's about the night Gavilar was killed, then it wouldn't be unless that was during the Weeping. I don't know.
So something that I've actually never noted before, and I just looked at and will point out to you now that I've noticed it, the prologues have also followed their own kind of naming scheme. So
okay.
the prologue in Way of Kings, which was Seth going to kill Gavilar, is called To Kill.
Mhm.
The Words of Radiance prologue, which was Yasna, is To Question. And now we have To Weep.
To question, to weep. Yeah, I mean, I still think Navani would be a good candidate. Maybe Dalinar too, but I think either one of those.
Dalinar's passed out drunk on the floor for most of that the events.
Yeah.
So
That's true. That's a good point. That's a good point.
Could be a very short prologue if it was Dalinar.
That's
Yeah.
true. Yeah.
He's like, they signed the treaty. I got real drunk. That's the last thing I remember. As far as the rest of the chapters, I mean, yeah, I would like for us to just kind of get with Kaladin back home. I'm trying to think of who the flashback character would be for this book. It'd be interesting to me if it was Yasna, because I feel like she's got a lot of intrigue going on, but I doubt it. Maybe Dalinar. I don't know. But yeah, I can only say that momentum, if it's a flashback, I don't know what momentum is a reference to. If it's a Dalinar flashback, maybe like the momentum of conquest. Like they had to keep momentum going to unite all the high princes and stuff.
Oh, okay.
It'd be really interesting if Gavilar was the flashback guy being dead. But,
Oh yeah, that could be interesting. We really don't know that much about him. We've heard like other people's perspective on him a lot, but we don't know much about him.
Yeah, I mean, other than the fact that he, kind of changed after reading The Way of Kings, and that, at this point, I would almost have to say he was probably a Radiant. Like something tells me he would have had to have been a Radiant because of everything going. Maybe not, but I don't know. Something about that makes me think that maybe he was.
Okay.
Yeah. But, well, no, because he had his own shard blade, huh? Yeah.
He did. That's true.
Yeah, so he probably wasn't a Radiant because he would have heard screaming and all that stuff.
But we know that he was getting visions because, Graves mentions that they know the name of the Everstorm from his visions. So
yeah, so maybe he was going to be the one that the Stormfather bonded to, but then he died. I don't know. But anyway, that I kind of went backwards there. I started with momentum. What were the other two chapters?
Broken and Divided is chapter 1, and One Problem Solved is chapter 2.
Broken and Divided seems like kind of the state of the kingdom, with them having, they're on the tower, the giant tower thing in Uruthiru, and they're having problems like back home, their cities rioting and all that stuff. And they just don't have good things going on in other places. That would be my guess based on that and kind of where we were in the story.
Yeah.
And then One Problem Solved, that seems like it might be a Shalon chapter, like she's working on stuff, or maybe even an Adolin chapter, like somebody's working on stuff. Oh yeah, do we know the perspectives for this part?
Oh yeah, I can tell you that. Why not? We usually do that. So, perspectives: Dalinar, Shalon, Kaladin, and Adolin.
Yeah.
Nobody unexpected.
Could be Shalon or Adolin, but I feel like it's probably one of them with the One Problem Solved, trying to figure stuff out. Shalon seems like a more likely candidate to me, but like I don't know what that problem is. Don't know.
Right. Yeah.
Or if it's Adolin, he's like, I solved the problem. I killed Sedatus.
That was a big problem that he solved. Hopefully it doesn't create some other problem.
Oh, I think it'd be silly to think that it wouldn't create it. But anyway, it's good stuff. But I'm excited to get into it.
Okay. Good deal. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to predict right here about the stuff showing up in the book that we haven't started yet, but I think you guys had some decent ideas. All right, let's move into. We don't have any new patrons this week. Let's do a couple emails, and we got like more time than usual, I think, to start with emails because we didn't have much predictions, and Dak isn't even here, so that cuts it down by a third already. So let's do a couple of these emails. The first one we have is from Joe. I assume not the Joe.
No, not me. I have never emailed the Sanderlanche podcast at gmail.com. But if you want to send us an email, that's where you should send it.
So it says, hello. Sorry, the title is Caught Up After Listening for a While. Hello, Lore's brother, Luke's Hoth co-pilot, Michael Myers' niece, and Grey Hulk.
Grey Hulk Joe, I guess.
Grey Hulk is Joe Fixit, I believe.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very comic book, a lot of pop culture references, I guess, which is what this show's all about. I like it already. I will say, just as a side note, because the guy's name is Joe, it made me think of this. So I went to a chiropractor to get some stuff looked at, and the chiropractor's name is Joseph. And when he met me, he was like, "Oh, I'm Dr. blah, blah, blah. You can just call me Joseph. Your name's Joe? Is your full name Joseph?" And I was like, no. And I could tell he was kind of disappointed, and I felt bad. But like, no, it's just Joe.
It's true.
Which, that is a little unusual. Not a lot of people are just named Joe. But
Do you guys watch the Michael Myers movies, Jamie? Are you a fan?
I don't think I've seen them.
Okay.
Yeah. Is he talking about Jamie Lee Curtis,
No.
actress?
That was my first thought too, but no, apparently, because I think Jamie Lee Curtis plays his sister, if I remember right.
Well, only that's not canon, but yes.
Oh, okay. So apparently his niece is named Jamie Lloyd.
Okay.
In the movies.
I've only seen
Not
the
spelled
first
like
one,
our Jamie, but
which is good, and I've seen a couple. I saw one more, I think, but I haven't seen most of them.
So there you go. We got off track a little bit. Continuing.
We did.
I started my own Cosmere podcast a year ago, and a few months later, I started listening to yours. It took me a few months to catch up because I did have to do some breaks in order to re-listen to Stormlight before the big book release, but I'm finally caught up on your podcast. I listened to a lot of first-time read podcasts for all sorts of series, including the Cosmere, Wheel of Time, Song of Ice and Fire, One Piece, Dragon Ball, and Fairy Tail. Now, I'm kind of curious about these first-time Dragon Ball.
I could never get into... Yeah, that is interesting. I could never get into Fairy Tail. Well, it's not for me.
I have enjoyed your podcast, and I even borrowed an idea from you for my own podcast, 1-star reviews as a bonus episode. Yes, it's a good one.
We did have fun with that.
I will admit, there are times when I strongly disagree with and get annoyed with some of your takes on characters or plot points, but I also feel like that's part of the charm of a first-time read podcast. I'll get annoyed with something someone says, but then they will say something else that I agree with or find insightful. It just gives multiple viewpoints on the same story, and is interesting to see how different things resonate with different people. One thing that Data does, which I really enjoy, is that he allows Joe, Dak, and Jamie to form their own opinions before putting in his. There have been some podcasts out there for different series that I've dropped because the person who had already read it either spoils the newbies or they constantly tell them how much they hate a character or a book even before the newbies get a chance to get to know these characters. It would be like if Data kept talking about how much he hated Denth in Warbreaker every single time the character was mentioned, even before the turn. I like how he kept it to himself and allowed the newbies to get on their own roller coaster and doesn't bring up his opinions until after they have theirs. It's a great skill for a person trying to lead discussion. Thanks. Appreciate that, Joe. As a person that is also a big fan of anime, manga, comic books, and Final Fantasy, I enjoy the references because I understand pretty much all of them. Granted, I'm a bit of a snob when it comes to it, and I always cringe whenever Joe pronounces the X in Hunter x Hunter. The X is silent.
Oh, didn't know that.
Yeah, there you go. So I said it wrong intentionally just now. Don't hate me.
Why is the X there if it's silent though? That's my question. Because it's its own like letter. It's not part of a word.
Why is the X in Hunter? Yeah, there it is. The X in Hunter x Hunter is a silent symbol, a stylistic choice by the creator Yoshihiro Togashi, and is meant to be pronounced as Hunter Hunter.
Yeah, I kind of it came back. The manga started printing again, and I read a few of the chapters, but I kind of fell off, so I need to catch back up with it. But it's good.
Apparently, the X is intended to be a multiplication sign, and the creator himself has used Hunter squared as the shorthand reference for the series to further emphasize that you don't pronounce the X.
That makes sense. Also, just from reading that manga, I feel like that dude loves math.
Okay.
There's a good amount of math in there.
All right. I like sticking some math in stuff, you know. I've been doing my watch through of all of Star Trek chronologically so I could catch some, watch some things I'd never watched, like Discovery and Strange New Worlds and stuff. And I did the musical episode of Strange New Worlds a while back, and there is a song that like Spock sings that is math based, and I thought that it was clever the way they did that, because it sets it up as variables, because the premise, I guess, is that a girl has broken up with him, and he's not taking it all that well, and so it's called I'm the X, and so he's like, it's couched as like an equation sort of thing where he is X as in a variable, and he's looking for Y, like why this happened, but Y is a variable. So it's kind of fun the way I like putting a little math in there.
I'm already out. We all know Spock only wants to have a girlfriend during Ponfar.
Well, I was kind of out on it at first when like they're making Spock kind of a little more in touch with his emotions, but I think that it's actually, they use it in an interesting way, as if this is explaining why later on, when you see him in the original series, he is more distanced from his emotions, because he's gone through some bad experiences, and that's led him to try to distance himself.
I kind of get that.
But anyway, I've really enjoyed Strange New Worlds. If anyone out there was like me and not watching most of New Trek, give it a shot. It's been pretty fun. Anyway, back to the email. I know somewhat of Futurama and have watched all of the Fox era on TV and DVD, but I never watched it after it came back, so I've forgotten a lot. I'm looking forward to your thoughts on future Stormlight books as well as secret projects. Luckily, with your pace, you won't have to wait too long afterwards until you reach the next Cosmere stuff after those. And then he has some just for data stuff, which I won't get into here. But thanks, Joe. And it looks like his podcast is called Cosmere Chronicles. So if someone wants to check that out, I think I listened to the first couple episodes of that a while back, and I'm bad at staying into and following podcasts regularly because I just have so much going on. But check that out if you're interested. We've had people in our Discord recommend it. We have a whole channel in the Discord for recommending other podcasts. And when it started out, they were like, are we allowed to talk about it? Like, there's some channels for Discord servers for podcasts where they're like, don't mention other podcasts, basically. And I'm like, no, like, making this, like, the Cosmere podcast more popular, that's good for everybody, you know?
Yeah, sure. That sounded sarcastic. I did not mean it that way.
Okay, that was Joe's email. We got a follow-up email from Adam, who last time we read his email was talking about Kaladin and Moash, and it got us into an interesting discussion that actually people in the Discord really appreciated, and we got some comments in other places that they kind of appreciated your take on Moash the last time we kind of had that discussion about it with the emails. But Adam wrote back after that episode to say, I feel like I need to make clear what my issue is with class dynamics in the Moash Kaladin story. I don't disagree with what the crew says about his motivations and his hypocrisy in not going after Rashon. However, my point is the narrative implies something problematic by framing the story and the parallels in the way that it does. I don't think it was Brandon's intention to say that the oppressed taking violent action against oppressors is wrong, but the fact that it's so easy to read it that way is an issue. It's not that I think Moash did nothing wrong. Anyone who says that is either willfully misreading or trying to get a rise out of you. But the choices Brandon made in telling the story rubbed me the wrong way. That is actually a thing I've seen online. People like, Moash did nothing wrong. Those guys are crazy.
I think it's safe to say we don't agree with that.
Yeah, I think the Sanderlanche's official podcast stance is Moash did do some stuff that was wrong.
So, okay. Thanks, Adam, for a little additional clarification there. Let's see. I think we have time for one more. Let me find a good one here. Oh, we haven't heard from Angela 2 in a while. Angela sent us an email. Rocking Stormform is the title. Hi, Sanderlanche crew. Sorry it's been so long since I've written. I haven't had much to contribute as I enjoy the Stormlight series, but it's not my favorite, and I have such a hard time tracking everything that goes on in it. You guys may, I'll pause. You guys may be relating to that. Having to go through it so slowly just makes tracking it harder.
Yeah, I mean, I don't ever feel lost, but at the same time, it's not super easy to keep track of stuff, especially all the names.
Yeah.
Like Dak's really good at it. I'm sure because he likes a lot of epic stuff, like reading Game of Thrones and stuff. But like he'll remember names. I'm like, dude, I don't know how you remember that. I didn't remember that guy at all.
Yeah, Dak's pretty good.
His recall is pretty good. Yeah.
She goes on. I will say that listening to the podcast has helped to me with that, as it's reminded me of things I've forgotten about and give me more explanation or context as I listen to Wind and Truth. I've fallen slightly behind in listening as I'm a curling junkie and have been watching the Canadian Scotties and Briar instead of listening to podcasts while I work. But I found this podcast is a perfect distraction while I'm at the gym and give me something to focus on and laugh about instead of wondering why I thought training for my black belt was a good idea. Hey, you go, Angela. Get that black belt.
Yeah, get that black belt. That's awesome.
Yeah, good on you. I want to thank whoever it was who threw out the idea of the Parshendis singing Thunderstruck as they lined up for battle. It's my new favorite headcanon, and I was giggling at the idea so much I received several eyebrow raises from people around me.
Yeah, I think that was mine. I'm a big Thunderstruck fan, and so is my 2-year-old son.
Well, there you go. I can see a 2-year-old loving that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he calls it the drum song. He likes drums a lot.
Data, congratulations on making it so far into the podcast before dropping a spoiler, and only by a podcast or two at that. There have been so many moments throughout the whole show that would have been so easy to spoil, and if I was in your place, I'm sure I would have. Being able to keep track of what the rest of the crew knows and separating out what you know as you talk about it is an impressive feat. Wasing to the time of next, Angela 2. Good to hear from you again, Angela. Glad you're working on something like a black belt. Man, I wish I had the time for something like that.
Goals.
Yeah, right.
I think there's too much Data's awesome email going on today. Just saying.
You can never have too much of that. Glad to know Angela's still out there, though.
Yeah, that's awesome.
She was, I think, one of the first people to ever email us.
Yeah.
Like, there was another Angela who was first. Angela 2 came not long after that.
Right. Yeah, no, I love hearing from people that have been listening so long. It makes me feel like, hey, we still got people that, like, you know, they're hanging out. They're still around.
Yeah. Keep coming back for more. Okay, we got a couple. We've actually pared it down now. We've made it through most of our emails. Just a couple left in the box, and we'll save those for a different time. But thank you guys. If you want to send us an email, the address is thesanderlanche@gmail.com. You can find us on Instagram and Blue Sky and Patreon, where my reactions to Wind and Truth, as I read it for the first time, are still going up. I've been doing one a week. And there was a whole lot of those. Let's see how many are left. There is 30 items, so 30 weeks worth of that left. If I continue at a rate of one a week.
How did you divide that up as far as what you were going to read? Was it locations, and did you use the same ones that we use, or
no?
What?
I was a little lazier on that, and I just did like 3 chapters, 3 chapters at a time. When I get towards the end of some of these books, I've been doing 3 chapters for every book pretty much. When I get towards the end, and like, you know, with the Brandon books, the chapters start getting shorter towards the end generally. I might reevaluate if the episodes coming up like way shorter than the other ones. I'll be like, well, maybe we'll move to like 4 or 5 episodes or chapters an episode if they're getting that short. But generally 3.
That makes sense.
I think there was once where I just kept going and forgot to stop after 3, and it ended up being 4. But 3 is what I'm shooting for. So yeah, check that out if you want to hear my rambling. It is occasionally entertaining, probably. I don't know. It's hard for me to be the judge of that, quite honestly. But there you go. If you want to hear that stuff, join the Patreon. If you're a new Patreon member, Joe will assign you a faring power.
I sure will.
And leave us a 5-star review and get a misting power. You guys may have to send me, if you like, the site that I used to use to track when people left us new Apple reviews has closed down. And so I don't get those notifications anymore. So if you leave a new Apple or anywhere 5-star review, shoot us an email, thesanderlanche@gmail.com, to let me know. Send a little screenshot, and we will get you your misting power. That might explain why we've tapered off some on the mistings the last little while, because that stopped. But
so if you're listening to this and you know you've submitted a 5-star review and we haven't talked about you on the podcast, because Data's very good about like saying when even before we start the show, like, hey, we got one of those today. So like, if you haven't heard yourself yet and you know you did it, send it to Data.
Yeah, email in, and we will get you on the show, guarantee.
We care about you guys getting your misting powers. I think it's a fun little way that you can be attached to the show, and I enjoy giving out powers, even if it is pretty random.
We've had more people asking about radiant powers now that we're getting deep into this, and so
we'll have to figure out something for that.
Yeah, something for that. I still don't know what. I think it'll be the end of this 3rd book when I have you guys take the quiz to see which radiant order you are. Because
why didn't we take a misting quiz? there one
Well,
of
there
those?
wasn't an official one. This is like an official on Brandon's website quiz to determine what gradient
Ooh,
order you are.
Fancy.
Yeah, I think by the end of this book, if I remember right, we've got at least a bit of an idea about most of the orders, and so it's a good time to take the quiz. So
Yeah.
we got that to look
Cool.
forward to. Yeah, I even before we went to the convention this last December, I had my wife take the quiz, even though she'd never read any of the
Yeah.
Stormlight. So she's like, "I'm an Edgedancer. I don't know what that means, but there you
Yeah.
go."
Wait, Data, can you say what you are? Or have we not discovered that one?
I am an Else Caller.
Okay. Don't know what that is.
That is what Yasna is.
Oh, okay, cool. So wait, do we know what her other like secondary power is?
Well, we know she can what you call it?
I know what you're saying.
Soulcast. Soulcast.
Yep, that.
But I don't know if we know what her other one is, actually. That's a good question. I mean, okay, so at the end, the epilogue, when she shows back up and Hoyt is waiting for her, he's like, "Did you have to else call so far out in the middle of nowhere?"
Mm,
So that seems like maybe it's related to her thing.
yeah. Well, soul casting seems to give you like at least more access to the cognitive realm.
Yeah.
But
Like
maybe
some level of, yeah.
But maybe, I mean, you obviously know, but I'm just pontificating. Maybe your secondary power has an even stronger connection to the cognitive realm, because she seems to kind of know her way around a little bit more, but maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the one thing I remember us seeing before is it says, as to the other orders that were inferior in this visiting of the far realm of the Spren, the Else Callers were prodigiously benevolent, allowing others as an auxiliary to their visits and interactions.
Mm-hmm.
And it also says the Lightweavers and Will Shapers had some affinity for the same, but neither were the true masters of that realm. So I think the implication is that the Else Callers are kind of the masters of visiting
The Spren realm.
Yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, so we will get there for you guys eventually. I mean, Oathbringer I have scheduled out at, what did I say? It was 39 weeks, so it'll be a little while.
Oh man,
But,
yeah, it's almost a year.
but yes, we will get there, which I guess is a good time to go into. Remember, we're going to do the prologue and the first 3 chapters for next time. So if you're following along, those are the ones to read. Thank you, everybody. Our patrons, our emailers, people leaving reviews, people in the Discord, people who just show up every week and listen to us. We appreciate you. You're the best. 4 chapters for next time. Music by Miracle of Sound. And Wasing to the Time of Next. Colo. P.S. Fasher. Crab at it.
To heaven, now I'm breaking in. Hey, 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 time to put your metal to the test now. Hey, 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 don't you know you're messing with the best now?
You gonna address the Dax not here?
Yep, I will have to do that. Usually I do that right then, huh? And I forgot.
Yeah, that's why I was like, oh, you just went into it.
Yeah, let me let me do a quick take on that, and then I can cut it in later.
No, it'd be funny. It'd be funny. You just don't address it. It's like
Nobody
yeah,
ever mentions that Dak isn't on the episode.
he's not in the show. He's not on the show anymore.
Yeah, it's really awkward, and so we're just gonna pretend that no, that's